was really an advantage for the brand to kind of show up with a personality and be a little bit different. We've already talked about how dry science can be and what that crowd is like. But when I got to interact with, consultants and thought leaders in the space, and I got to introduce myself as Good Cop, it gave us something to talk about. And it let us turn up a lot different than their other clients who were scientists too, or senior scientists or research associate. So it really enabled us to have, more personal and fun conversations, and quite frankly, be the client that people would want to work with, because we had a little bit of sense of humor and we like to have a little bit of fun.
This is Evolve CPG, a community of purpose-driven brand leaders who not only believe in better, but actively pursue it. That's better products, better brands, and better leadership for a better world. I'm your host, Gage Mitchell, founder and creative director of Modern Species, a sustainable brand design agency helping better brands grow and scale their impact. On today's episode, we're speaking with Ryan Williams, operating partner of NextWorld Evergreen, about how brands and investors are taking sustainability seriously, even when some experiments fail.
Hey, I'm Ryan Williams. I'm an operating partner with NextWorld Evergreen.
Thanks for joining me, Ryan. I'm excited to chat with you because I just love when money gets used for doing good things in the world. But I think what's also interesting about your background is that you have a background in science with environmental toxicology. So real quick, can you tell us a little bit more about what drew you into toxicology and kind of how that applied to your career?
Absolutely. First of all, thanks for having me. I think you're building a great community, and we really appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit more about what we're doing at NextWorld. I got into toxicology, quite frankly, accidentally. I always had an aptitude for sciences, and I studied chemistry in college. When I finished my undergraduate degree, there weren't a lot of jobs or people that looked like me that I wanted to go work with. So I set out on a journey and got into graduate school at University of California at Riverside. And I was really lucky to have an amazing journey there. My first quarter was a little bit bumpy. I'm not going to hide that. But by my second quarter, I was able to join a lab that focused on human exposure to pesticide use, primarily in agriculture environments. So what our lab did specifically was we applied chemistry to human health effects. And what those projects looked like were monitoring primarily migrant farm workers as they were harvesting agricultural products like strawberries, cherries, and things of that nature.
Wow, that's important work. And I feel like, did those studies get published in lots of places? Like, is there somewhere where we can point people to see some?
Sure. I'm not sure anyone would want to. It's mostly technical scientific literature. It's been published.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I know that after school, you ended up sometime thereafter at Clorox. And I'd be curious to know what a environmental toxicologist does at a company like Clorox.
Yeah, for sure. So let me talk a little bit about the transition. It was, very opportunistic. The U.S. EPA had changed the way that they were regulating antimicrobials and disinfectants in the home. And so there was a law passed in 1997 which shifted that paradigm. And then to start regulating those products more like agricultural products. So as I said, I have the history, in the human exposure to agricultural chemical use, and then household brands like Lysol and Clorox and, some of the Procter & Gamble brands and the SC Johnson brands needed to start generating data to comply with the new regulations. And that really opened up the opportunity for me to kind of translate the work I had done in the ag environment into the household environment. And Clorox was a great place to start my career. For those not intimately familiar, it's a house of brands. Typically brands are, number one or two in their category, and big household categories beyond cleaning. When I joined the company, I started working on the Armor All and STP automotive brands, which are no longer part of that portfolio.
Oh, wow.
And also charcoal. Yeah. Kingsford and Matchlight are a part of that portfolio. Huh. So I learned kind of this journeyman toxicology role throughout the portfolio, and really learned a lot about how science and technical information was used, for regulatory purposes, whether it was, the California Air Resources Board, the US EPA, antimicrobial pesticide regulations, VOCs, Prop 65, a number of things. And as a journeyman toxicologist, I got to work on the brands that I mentioned, but then quickly moved into food products. Hidden Valley Ranch and Casey Masterpiece are owned by Clorox.
Okay.
Gladware, the Glad franchise is owned by Clorox. So food contact issues I learned a lot about. Brita water filtration. So we worked a lot with third-party certifiers like the NSF. And then the suite of household cleaning products, brands like Soft Scrub and Pine Sol, in addition to the Clorox franchise, were under that banner. So it's really an amazing opportunity to kind of learn, how to become a consumer products toxicologist.
Yeah, no kidding. Across all those different brands with a lot of diversity in that portfolio too. That must have just been an amazing learning experience. Just out of curiosity, were you working on multiple brands at once and had multiple projects going, or was it just kind of like one after the other? You're like, okay, I've got something to do. I bang that out and then I move on to the next brand.
Yeah. So I was really lucky, as a generalist, that I was able to work on a number of different brands, and it was fun. I could work on, food products
that's cool.
on one day, and then I could work on, other products like cat litter, for instance, on another day. So I really enjoyed, getting to learn those businesses and kind of support them through their product safety and regulatory needs. And it really it was an accelerated point in my career where I learned a lot very quickly.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about running a design agency is getting to work on multiple brands, and it just keeps you kind of engaged, like from one challenge to another, but then lessons you learn in one brand, you can kind of apply it to another in some ways. So yeah. It's super powerful. And
that's where I really fell in love with brands. I spent my whole career up to that point as a scientist, and, as you'd ask, publishing papers that go into technical journals, and, when you go home to tell your mom and dad about, what you've done, it's really great to point to a brand, that they interact with as well. And, be the person that helps make Armor All safe, or ensures that, bleach complies with disinfectant regulations. So it's super fun for me, at that point in time. And it really kind of connected me personally to the work that I was doing in society. And, from that point forward, I can't ever imagine not working on consumer brands.
Yeah, it does make it so much more concrete when not only you can like walk into a store and just stumble upon a brand that you've helped out in some way, but your friends, family now have a real good idea of what you do instead of just some ethereal, I worked on this new interaction on an app that you probably have used once or something. Like it's literally a product on the shelf that you see all the time. That's cool. So I know that after Clorox, you went into Method. And, obviously it's somewhat different kind of organization. I think a lot fewer brands under Method. But I was super curious to see in your LinkedIn profile, you had Good Cop and Global Greenskeeper as some of your titles there.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious. So I'd love to hear more about your role at Method.
Sure. I mean, even kind of the transition from Clorox to Method, at that point in time, I was working closely on the Greenworks franchise. And so I learned a lot about the low-cost consumer and how the next generation were being mindful about the products that they used. I learned about green chemistry, sustainable packaging, how to formulate non-toxic products. And it really changed my mindset on what was possible in the category. And of course, at that point in time, you couldn't dodge the founder story that was happening at Method. So Eric and Adam, had a startup. They're making products that look cool. They were counter-worthy and just were really disrupting the industry. I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Adam through a former colleague. Method was actually having a regulatory issue at the time. So I kind of informally met with them to, give a little bit of guidance. And next thing that happened was we had a few beers and I had a job offer in my hand.
Nice. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah. So you had asked specifically about some of my job titles, like Good Cop and Global Greenskeeper.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, Method is a culture first, mission-driven brand with a strong purpose. And I think the mindset was that while we took our products and our work very seriously, we didn't take ourselves very seriously. So we had the latitude to have, really fun, thought-provoking job titles, such as Good Cop and global greenskeeper. We had the the head of sales while I was there. His job title was chief optimist. People in
nice.
AR had job titles like "Show me the money."
That's
one of
great.
my favorite ones that I can actually take a little bit of credit for was someone in HR had the job title of friend with benefits. So we were just really tongue-in-cheek and lighthearted, and kind of joking aside, it was really an advantage for the brand to kind of show up with a personality and be a little bit different. We've already talked about how dry science can be, what that is like. But when I got to interact with consultants and thought leaders in the space, and I got to introduce myself as Good Cop, it gave us something to talk about. And it let us turn up a lot different than their other clients who were scientists too, or senior scientists or research associate. So it really enabled us to have more personal and fun conversations, and quite frankly, be the client that people would want to work with, because we have a little bit of sense of humor and we like to have a little bit of fun. And again, while we took our products and our work very seriously, we always were able to take a step back and have a little fun with ourselves.
I love it. It's a more holistic approach to brand, because brand isn't just like your visual presence on your package. It goes down all the way down to your titles and how you introduce yourself. So that's cool. Yeah, love it.
I think it really strikes the core of that brand with design and marketing, being very disruptive and very innovative. And nothing says that you're innovative and disruptive when you get to go to major retailers and introduce yourself a little bit differently as a head of sales, as a head of marketing, as a CEO. And the founders, you can read about their job titles. Eric and Adam, the party starters.
That's cool. Yeah, I've been exploring the idea of chief evolution officer for this Evolve CPG community and podcast. So same mindset there. That's cool. At Method, I know Method is known for doing some pretty ambitious sustainability stuff too. Do you have any fun case studies you can share with us about like what really worked or what didn't work? Yeah,
we had a lot of successes, but we had some pretty spectacular failures. Along the way. And I think, the case study that kind of comes to my mind, one of the seminal projects was launching the world's first ocean plastic product. Yeah, that was a project that was, inspired by, Adam Lowry when he was, in Hawaii and was spending a lot of time, at the beach, and he noticed all these pieces of plastic. So he started networking in the community. We met a bunch of the local nonprofits and some of the environmentalists in the area, and just have this crazy thought: if this plastic is here, why can't we just take it back and make a usable product out of it? Yeah, that's cool. And so, a lot of people think about that as a sustainability product or a sustainability project, but I think we really approached it as radical innovation. We were leaders in PCR, post-consumer recycled material, and we thought, wow, if we can collect the gnarliest plastic that's oxidized and weathered and brittle, and we can bring that into our supply chain and leverage the expertise of our partners to regrind and pelletize and extrude that material and then blow mold it into a usable bottle. I can't think of another way to demonstrate such radical capability and innovation in the plastic space. And that's what we were able to accomplish. That's awesome. You'd asked about successes and failures. Unfortunately, that product did not get the traction, at shelf. So while it was disruptive, it was supported strongly at shelf by the retail partner, Whole Foods, who we launched the product in partnership with. Consumers were just not buying it. There were a few issues with the product proposition that we're just not able to work through. And ultimately, the market viability of that product went away. Was there any research done as to why that didn't get adopted by consumers? Was it, I can't remember if it was at a higher price point. Was it because I think it was a gray bottle, right? Instead of some of the clear bottles. Like, was there some sort of insight that drove, or at least helped explain why it didn't take off? Yeah, there were a number of factors. I think what you described, there's obviously an aesthetic thesis or hypothesis. that people, knew Method is vibrant and clear, colorful bottles. And here was, something that was kind of gray and matte. So it didn't really correlate to the brand at the time. Ironically, that's a very strong aesthetic with the brand, kind of the matte, more contemporary finishes and colors.
Yeah.
The second one was the price point that you talked about. Due to the product and the pricing needs at retail, it was priced a little bit higher than its peers. The third reason is possibly where it was shelved. It was Method. It was a strong cleaning brand, and that product was put into the cleaning set. So consumers that were walking into Whole Foods to buy a hand wash maybe wouldn't go explore the cleaning product space to find that product. So I think all of those things kind of played into, the product not doing as well as it needed to do at shelf.
Yeah.
A bit of a case study.
So not
failure.
Yeah, not quite as clear cut as I think it was Sun Chips that launched that compostable bag that everyone complained about being too noisy because they couldn't sneak their bag of chips at work or something like that because it was just so crunchy and noisy. But it's interesting to study those. Another one of my favorite examples is Seventh Generation launched that molded pulp with the plastic liner detergent packaging, and really cool, awesome innovation, etc. Less plastic, molded, kind of introduces functionality of molded pulp. But when I talked to material recovery facilities, when I was going on a tour with the Sustainable Packaging Coalition, I asked them about that package, and they said, we love the idea, but the problem is consumers weren't disassembling it. So we would get it with the cap on, with the bladder inside, with the molded pulp on the outside, and we had to just pull those off the line and throw them into landfill. So it's just one of those things that's like, cool idea, but consumers screwed it up because probably they weren't informed enough about what they need to do with it, or maybe they weren't motivated enough to take it apart or whatever. But it's just sometimes those one little thing that can destroy such an innovative product.
Yeah.
That's rough. Okay. So do you have any fun wins or anything you can share as well?
Geez, I think, in the spirit of, hey, how does a scientist or how does somebody technical, support the business and enable the business strategy? There are a number of wins. I think, going back to our job titles, Method just had a different place in the marketplace, and we turned up differently, with retailers, whether they were large mass retailers that were able to build relationships beyond, sales and marketing to really support the business and tell our story. Yeah. I'd say one of the products I'm most proud of is re-earning our business at Whole Foods. And that was one where Whole Foods had kind of gone from a regional model, and the buyer was consolidating the cleaning set on a national level. So there was a core team that involved sales, myself, R&D, and our creative group to really provide some innovative solutions to meet the Whole Foods standard. So real specifically, Whole Foods has a prohibition on dyes in the cleaning category, and our brand, was all about being vibrant and colorful, and we dyed the liquid. Yeah, that was for sustainability purposes. It's much more sustainable to buy the liquid or to dye the liquid than it is to dye a package. Yeah. Number one, if you dye clear PET, it's not reusable at the end of life and not collectible. Yeah. So we partnered, told that story, brought the scientific, validation to Whole Foods, and ultimately arrived at a solution where we're able to put a colorful shrink wrap around the bottle that was also, recyclable and allowed the bottle to be collected at end of life. So we were able to meet our principles. We were able to comply with the standard. We did, add some materiality to the product that we didn't like, but it was enough to get the business and stay in that set and maintain the national distribution. Nice. I'd say of all the projects I worked on, that was one where Method really showed up from a cross-functional and a collaborative standpoint.
That's cool. I do love collaboration, and obstacles I feel like often push you into a more creative space, and you have to come up with a new idea rather than just going with the default. So that's a fun case study.
One thing I would like to add to that also may be helpful for people is that Whole Foods really showed up for us in that conversation. Yeah. And they were really clear about their expectations and what they needed to see for us to keep our business, with them and ultimately be selected for their national product set. So I think, collaboration goes both ways, and it was really great to partner with them because they were easy to partner with. And maybe we didn't like their decisions, and maybe we didn't like or agree with some of the mandates that our buyers were given, but they were completely transparent and open about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really cool when it's not just a no and there's no negotiating kind of answer, but it's like a no, but let's chat. That's a great relationship to keep.
Yeah, and I would say that they adopted a no because.
Yeah.
And, they would, we can't do that, and here's why. I can't allow you to use dyes when there's a prohibition across the state.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then awesome brand experience at Method, Clorox, et cetera. But then fast forward to now, you're at an equity firm, NextWorld Evergreen. So tell us a little bit about how that transition came to be.
Yeah, so, NextWorld Evergreen is a very different investment firm. We have a committed source of capital for a 100-year time frame, and we invest. That enables us to have a longer term view around our investments and how we deploy capital.
Nice.
In this particular case, I think our partners, and our LP really understand kind of the resilience and the benefits of brands that incorporate ESG and sustainability into their business strategy. With our longer term time horizon, it demands that we look at things like social impact, climate change, when we're trying to evaluate investments.
So for NextWorld Evergreen, and I know it's part of a family of NextWorld, and then I forget the name of another entity that you're involved with, but for NextWorld Evergreen, what makes a good investment for you? Like what specifically are you looking for in your brands?
Yeah, so we have a mandate to invest in brands at a certain scale. So first of all, we look for brands that are in that $10 to $100 million range. We also really believe in omni-channel brands. That probably sounds silly coming out on the other side of COVID,
yeah.
But omni-channel for us can be brick and mortar retail, direct to consumer, food service, other channels that kind of diversify the customer base for a brand.
Interesting.
We also look at conscious consumer brands, and we evaluate management that are aligned with our goals and philosophies.
Yeah. And I think, obviously there are some investors that just throw their money into a brand hoping for a return at the end. But I know y'all are much more involved when you get buy some equity in a brand. So how is it that you're helping brands grow? Like, what is it that NextWorld brings to the table?
Well, as I mentioned, we have a 100-year fund. So our time horizon is not dictated by 5 to 7 year PE cycles. So we can do what's right for the business. We've had exits after a short period of time, and we've had brands that will continue to invest in, for a longer hold period, because that's what's right to do for the business. So we kind of alleviate some of the typical time constraints. I think that's a really big advantage that we have compared to some of the other funds in our space.
That makes sense.
I think the another advantage that we have is our mindset when it comes to founders and CEOs. We understand that ESG and principles around sustainability are critical kind of over the next 10 and 25-year time period. Investing into ESG initiatives become strategic business enablers. Look, everyone's racing towards net zero climate on time horizon, and we understand the needs of companies at various maturities to start investing in that capability to kind of meet those longer term initiatives.
Nice. So speaking of which, with a heavy sustainability background and all this expertise helping brands kind of innovate through sustainability, what is your role at NextWorld Evergreen? I know it's operating director, but what does that mean, and how do you bring in your background to help brands?
Yeah. So as an operating partner, I wear a lot of hats, but principally, we've implemented ESG frameworks with all of our majority-owned companies. And what that means is that we have a 3-year strategy. We've got an annual framework that we revisit, and that allows us to really prioritize, resource, and make progress against the goals that support the company's strategy.
Nice. So an example might be, and you would know more about this than I do, but one of the clients I've had for a long time is Alter Eco through my design agency, Modern Species. But I know that after the acquisition with NextWorld Evergreen, it didn't, like a lot of investment companies, all their innovative kind of give back, mission driven, regenerative agriculture stuff might have gotten put on hold until certain sales goals were hit or something. But with NextWorld Evergreen, it felt like all that got ramped up, and they ended up launching a foundation soon thereafter. So is that kind of, maybe you can shed a little light on kind of what that relationship was like, what your involvement in some of that. I don't know if you were involved in Alter Eco acquisition at all, but what the organization's involvement was in kind of helping Alter Eco push their mission forward.
Yeah, so the Alter Eco acquisition predates me. So it was already in the portfolio when I joined NextWorld. And it was actually one of the reasons that I wanted to join NextWorld, was to be able to work with a brand like Alter Eco that's an OG natural channel brand, right? They're organic, fair trade from the start. And the brand had made the plastic commitments kind of around the same time that I had joined. So it's been nice to partner with that company, and I, work directly with management to kind of validate, what they're doing on their side. And I think as an investor, another important role that I play as an operating partner is educating our NextWorld partners. So I get to talk to, the lead partner on that business about the importance of regenerative agriculture, eliminating plastic, and the social initiatives that we have at source, near the cacao.
Nice. That's awesome. So for brands out there who are looking to get more equity, but want it to be mission aligned equity, what would be like your, top 3 or 5 or something tips for brands trying to get to where your family brands are?
So I'd say the most important thing for purpose-driven brands to do is make decisions through the lens of the mission. And, there's going to be the 2 or 3 things that are right around, they're going to be the 2 or 3 things that are core to your mission. I think you just to focus on those kind of every day. The second thing I would say is that, mission and purpose is not an excuse for financial sustainability. I mean, we're talking about companies. We're talking about companies that need to, scale and ultimately, at some point, achieve profitability. And I would say the single most important thing that a mission-driven brand can do is to achieve profitability.
Yeah.
Because that opens up, so many options, for the future. And I would also say at NextWorld, that's where we view things a little bit differently. We don't view impact and financials to be separate. We like to invest in brands like Alter Eco, where impact and ESG initiatives become strategic imperatives to the growth of the business.
Nice.
Such as organic, such as regenerative, such as social fairness and fair wage and being fair trade certified is for Alter Eco.
Yeah, that's great. So where the more impact should also equal more sales or more good suppliers or more, whatever you need to grow your business, but also growing your business is good because then that gives you more resources to make an impact. So they're kind of a nice cycle that feed each other.
Hand in hand.
That's great. Well, amazing. I love tapping into some of your both business, brand, and sustainability knowledge. So all 3 of those things are super powerful and super things that I'm passionate about. So I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule to come share some wisdom with the community here. And thanks for doing what you do and keep doing it.
Thanks so much, Gage. Thanks for having us. And we're excited about the community that you're building and really appreciate the opportunity to participate.
Awesome. Cheers. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about Ryan or his firm, go to nextworldevergreen.com. Business can be a powerful force for good. Is your brand living up to its full potential? Go to evolvecpg.com to learn about our new impact workshop, Exponential Good. Over 6 weeks, we'll be thinking bigger, getting relevant, spreading throughout, going exponential, working backwards, and making it real so you can walk away with a clear vision and a detailed action plan for scaling your brand's positive impact exponentially. Subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel for more innovator interviews, expert advice, and leadership discussions. If you like this episode, leave a heart, thumbs up, or review, and share it with your colleagues. As an ever-evolving show, we also love feedback, so send us your thoughts or ideas for who we should talk to next to evolve@modernspecies.com.